Hello, everyone, and welcome back to WABAN, the movie and TV show podcast where an expert on the subject discusses things with the average viewer. I'm your host, Nim, and today I am joined by Green Arrow.
I can only think of the Green Arrow from the live action show at this point. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I only watched it when it first came out, but
yeah, that show has warped everyone's perception of the character. That show made him humorless, which is not Green Arrow. Just gonna say. I mean, you could tell from Justice League Unlimited. Green Arrow is very much not a humorless character. But anyways, so we watched the first season of Justice League Unlimited. And yeah, what are your initial thoughts on it before we get deep dive into the episodes? Just because it's kind of a different vibe than Justice League is.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell it's an extension of the same show, right? Yeah. It's just they have a lot more characters that they can utilize now.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is it's weird how it's in a way it's an expansion from the other show, but it's also dials it back a little bit from the other show because story wise, because I feel like a lot of the stories in this aren't quite as big and important as a lot of the stories in the Justice League. A lot of these are more smaller scale stories, and they're all kind of one episode stories. In Justice League, almost every episode was a two-parter. There was a few 3-part episodes, and there was only one, single episode, which was the Christmas one.
Right.
But this show, every episode is a single one. The season ends with a 2-parter, but the rest of the season and each one is just a completely different story. So and they're kind of these smaller scale stories that are, so it's the show decided, it's after the big, universe changing finale of the last one, it really changed the status quo. They're you know what, we're going to dial it back, start small, and kind of start building from there. And this season, I think, is very much that start of those building blocks. There's hints of things to come in the future seasons of of some big things that might happen, but it's kind of, this season is just the small start of that.
Right. But I did also like how it doesn't feel like a different show. Everything's updated and stuff is newer and they're doing new things with it, but it still feels like the same show. It feels familiar,
Yeah, all the characters feel like the same characters. There's, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I guess we'll start with getting into each episode. So the first one is titled Initiation. Now this is kind of very much just an introduction episode. It introduces us to the concept of the show, of the unlimited thing, the unlimited concept, which is, there's unlimited heroes, basically, I guess is why it's called that. And it introduces us to that through Green Arrow. It starts with a very simple, small scale superhero and kind of pulls you in through that, which I actually thought was really cool. This show that's all about taking what the first show was and adding more to it, adding all these new superheroes, just any superhero you could think of in the DC universe. It just opens with just a small store being robbed in Green Arrow, just stopping some store being robbed, and that's that's it. You know what I mean? Something simple.
They don't blow it out of proportion immediately.
Yeah, which I think was kind of nice. A nice way to do it.
Yeah, start small so you can build it up like a proper story.
Yeah, and I think Green Arrow was a great character to do that with. They do a good job of really getting you to like him. Like I think I like his personality. He's fun.
Fights for the little guy.
Yeah, fights for the little guy, his whole thing. And by the end of it, Batman has this thing where it's like he almost gives a good reason why he should be part of the team. Because, like, you know, in a way, you're like, yeah, why should he? I mean, he's just like a small scale guy who has a bow, like, whatever. And Batman's kind of like, you know, oh, you know, we want guys like you to keep us honest and, you know, whatever. And like to keep them grounded, kind of, which I thought was interesting.
And then, that the monsters, the big guys fight, step on the little guys.
Yeah, there was that whole thing too. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a good introduction. I mean, the main kind of conflict of the episode is kind of like a whatever, you know, conflict. It's literally just there to give. It feels like one of those conflicts where it's like it's just there to introduce us to the show, introduce us to a few of the characters, and to set up, you know, to set up, like, you know, to really push Green Arrow into joining the Justice League. It doesn't do much more than that. It's kind of like, you know, they just gotta stop this giant radiation monster thing. Whatever.
That confuses me. I can nitpick about that because Supergirl kind of makes sense. Because, like, I mean, once again, it's my whole problem with Superman. Like, if you give him limits, he's not supposed to have them. But if you don't, then it's not a good story. So it's a lose-lose. But then there's Adam, right? Captain Adam?
Captain Adam, yeah. Because there's Adam and then there's Captain Adam, yeah.
He's made of pure energy, right? And he's just contained in that suit.
Yeah.
So how can he be, like, burned or affected by radiation that he's essentially made out of?
I don't know, like, because, like, his suit was, like, destroyed and he was kind of, like, let out of it, so that maybe has something to do with it. Like, it's hard for him to kind of piece himself back together if his, like, he's, like, let out of the suit, maybe,
right?
That's kind of containing him. That
I kind of get. If, like, you know, the monster breaks the suit, he's let loose and he can't control himself. But then there's the whole thing of, like, if you get that close to the core, you're gonna get burnt up. It's like, what's gonna get burnt up? The energy? What are you talking about?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That is a little weird, but yeah, I mean, he's not. I don't think he ever really becomes a super important character. Supergirl does throughout the show, I think.
I could imagine, yeah.
But he's just kind of there as a, you know, it's nice to kind of give some of the new characters something to do, you know, to show off, like, yeah, this is what the show is. We're gonna have all these new characters pop up here and there, you know. But yeah, I mean, overall the conflict was fine. I did like the final moment where, like, Green Arrow had his, like, great, you know, shot with the bow and took it out.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's definitely it's cool because it's like a, you know, this is a giant radiation monster. Like, you'd expect, like, yeah, the big super powerful ones are going to take it out. Yeah, Captain Adam, he's going to take it out, or Supergirl's going to take it out, or Green Lantern with his ring, because they're the other characters that are there. But no, it's the guy with the bow who wasn't really supposed to be there but just showed up there because he needed a ride, you know. Like, that's the one who ends up taking out the big radiation monster. I was like, you know, it's pretty cool. I like it. But yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say about it other than that. It's a pretty simple episode.
Yeah, it is a nice little touch that he was trying to fire, like, the carbon rods at it, and he was failing over and over. And it was just like, these aren't proper arrows. I'm just going to attach a smaller... I'm going to, like, take a chunk off, attach it to a smaller arrow that I know I can fire. Yeah.
Yeah, that you're used to, that he's trained, that he's used to firing. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like,
that's true. Well, also, like, it adds a little bit more of, like, a struggle to it to make the fight a little bit more engaging. So it's not just, he just easily takes it out, whatever, you know. So,
well, yeah, because, nice. Like, it's his entire thing to be a master of the bow. So obviously he's going to make the shot eventually. But what's the problem that he can't make the shot? Well, it's because these aren't proper arrows that he's firing.
Yeah, so he's not used to it. Yeah, that it does make sense. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm ready to move on to the next episode if you are. So next is For the Man Who Has Everything. And this was one of the first episodes of the show I watched as a kid. And to this day, I think it's one of my up there as one of my like higher level episodes. Probably not favorite, but like of this season, it might be up at the top of this season. And this is the one where it's Superman's birthday. He has the monster thing attached to him that's feeding him like this perfect fantasy world.
Yeah.
I really like this. Apparently this was based on a comic of the same name, I think. So like interesting. I think it's like it's such a interesting idea of like you're creating a prison that's difficult to break out of, not like because it's like physically difficult to break out of the prison, but because it's like in order to break out of the prison, you have to destroy and deny your heart's deepest desires.
It's like it's like how zoos work. You don't want to try to make it physically impossible for an animal to escape. You want to make sure they don't want to escape.
Yeah, make it a nice, comfortable place. Make it feel like they're in the jungle, you know.
Make it look and feel escape, like they will find a way.
Right, exactly. Because it's like at the end of it, it wasn't difficult for him to notice that it was fake and to break out of it. It's just getting him to the point where he's like okay with losing everything. And the scene where he does lose everything is just like,
yeah,
like how could like
this episode, like the imaginary kid.
Yeah, but like to him, this creates this life, all these memories. To him, this is his kid. This is his kid that he's raised from the time he was a baby, seen from the time he was born. Like it's just like. It hits you. You're like, oh, like even though you know you only met this kid just now in this episode, and you know whatever, but it still is like. And I think the voice actor for Superman, I can't remember his name at the moment, but I think his performance there really hit hard too. Like just like, especially when he's like fighting Mongol at the end, and he's like, "Do you know what I lost?" Like,
yeah,
and it's.
The moment he is free, just the absolute anger and wrath that he's immediately goes to unleash. Yeah.
Which I thought Mongol was an interesting character to use for this. Because last time we saw him, he was just the War World guy. And like, you know, that's like one of my least favorite episodes of Justice League. Maybe not, I don't know if it's at the very bottom, but it's definitely low. Probably for you too, I think.
I mean, it was meh, yeah. I didn't mind it, but
it was definitely one of the biggest episodes in the whole like Superman's a total bitch ass pussy thing, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like
of it, so
yeah, exactly. But I think he's a much more entertaining character here than he was there, honestly. Like I don't know. Because
I did like the idea of him knowing that nobody else on the planet was strong enough to beat him, and then he just does that to Superman.
Which is why he's like, all I need to do is take out Superman, and then I'm good. Yeah. But he's not even like scared when Superman does come out. He's still like ready. He's like, all right, I'm fighting Superman now.
You know? Not part of the plan, but whatever, let's go.
Yeah, I did, however, also like the fight between him and Wonder Woman, and it's like she was really putting up a good fight, and you know, losing, but like putting up a really good fight, and it's like pretty intense. I always really liked
the explosions in the background, being like, she found the weapons chamber. It'll buy her some time.
Yeah, Batman is like, all right, she can handle that. She's the big strong person. I can focus on trying to get this thing off of Superman.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I know I'm not going to do anything against Mongol because I'm just a regular man. Yeah, and then there's always the classic thing that this show does all the time where they almost have somebody cursed but not quite, Wonder Woman's like, Goda, and then shoots the gun so you don't hear what she says. This show does that. Like, I don't know if you noticed, like in Justice League, and I think even Justice League Unlimited, like this does it a lot.
I've noticed a few times. I can't remember any specific ones now, but
the one time Green Lantern, he made an axe out of his lantern and he said, "Kiss my axe," and
I do remember that one. Yep, that was like in the last few episodes.
I think it was in one of the Hawk Girl episode, like the final, when he's fighting Hawk Girl's fiance, I think.
Yep.
No, that's always great. But yeah, no, this is a really interesting concept for an episode, for like a creature, like the prison thing, and then like and to see Superman go through that, but then also to see Batman have to go through witnessing his parents die again. Like,
yeah, okay. So Superman's fantasy, I just really liked all the details of it, like his father like regaining his success and his trust in society, him just having a little farm away from the city and just visiting the city ever so often.
Well, it's interesting because it's like this is supposed to be his innermost like fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, really? He would prefer to live out on a farm than he would in like Metropolis, like in the city. But he lives in the city because he thinks like that's where he's most needed and like can do the most good,
But I just felt it was so fitting because like he grew up on a farm and he just wants that quiet farm life still.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Mongol is like, oh, I wonder what his, dream is. Like, is he sitting on a throne, ruling over everyone? Probably. Haha. And it's like, no, you're actually wrong.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah. He's like, so much better than this fake pretense of being this selfless hero. Like, actually, no, that's like legit. That's not, he doesn't just put that on as like a fake thing. He's legitimately a selfless hero who just wants a simple life, but doesn't because he has superpowers, and with great power comes great responsibility. And I know that's a Spider-Man quote, but I mean it rings true here as well. So
yeah, but then they do the same thing to Batman, and you just start seeing his dad beat up the mugger,
right?
And it might have just been because like there was less of an episode to go through and it wasn't like Batman's story, but it was a nice little detail that they did that and showed that Batman was able to overcome it much faster, which makes sense because one, he's Batman, and two, he has spent his life like thinking about that moment. He knows how it happened.
Yeah. Well, he just generally has this stronger like mental fortitude kind of, right?
Yep.
Like that's kind of one of his big things, as a character. Yeah. But also like it's interesting, so like each character, Superman and Batman, have their own sort of like past trauma that they probably think about a lot, right? Superman's, he can't even remember because he was a baby, like his planet blew up, right? His in order for him to break out of his prison, he has to witness his planet blowing up. For Batman, his biggest trauma was his parents dying. In order for him to break out of his prison, he has to witness his parents dying. Like that's kind of I think in the comic it was based on, from what I've heard of it, I think that Wonder Woman also had it on her at one point, and like had like Batman's was longer. There was more detail to it, and Wonder Woman actually had it on her at one point, but they cut it down just because there wasn't enough time in one episode to do it all.
Makes sense.
But that would be interesting to see what Wonder Woman's is.
Yeah.
Because I'm not even sure what it would be, right? Like, because I feel like I don't know enough about like what is Wonder Woman's like biggest trauma in her life, you know? Like, I'm not even entirely sure. You know,
I mean, it's not like she was ever banished from her island. She can go back at any point.
Well, she was in the one episode, but
true, but that was just that one.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting. Maybe that's a comic I could read one day, because I like the episode. So if it's based on, you know, to read the original story of it would be very interesting. But yeah, it's a really good episode. Like, it's interesting because it's an episode that very easily could have been done in the Justice League show, because it literally features only characters from the original show.
Right.
But it's like they decided to do it now instead of then, you know. And maybe if they had done it in the original show, maybe they could have made it a 2-part episode and explored more of Batman's, you know, visions and then also Wonder Woman's. Maybe, I don't know. That would have been interesting, but as it stands, this is the way it is, and it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, at the beginning, Wonder Woman is in her invisible jet.
Right. That's
so
like
that
its
is
first appearance.
That is a thing now. Yeah, I always wondered about that. I'm like, so where does she get it? There's no explanation of it. I'm like, maybe it's literally just she got one of the regular, like one of the javelins like that they have and just customized it and then made it invisible.
It's either that or it's just one of the artifacts that she got off her island.
Yeah, but that's not like something you would get from an Amazonian island. I never knew. I don't know enough about Wonder Woman to know like where she got her invisible jet anyways, like in the original like comics and stuff anyways, so I don't know. But so it was interesting. An interesting little touch. But yeah, we can move on to the next one if you'd like. I think
sure.
I just don't want to spend too much time talking about one. That one I think we could talk about for a while because I feel like there's a lot to get into. The next one I don't think I'm going to have as much to say about is kids stuff.
Oh yeah.
Justice League gets turned into kids, and
it's entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, like beyond like it's one of those. It's like a novelty episode of like, oh, it's there to show you like what would happen if the Justice League were kids. Like that'd be entertaining, and that's it. Like that's really, you know, because it takes characters like villains that were taken way more seriously in the original show, and just kind of makes it a little bit more like, I don't know, just it's weird. I'm not saying it's like a bad thing, but it's just weird, like a weird direction to take the characters, you know?
Yeah, because there's, I don't know, Batman is usually like hyper mature and serious, and now he's not. Like he's still mature for his age, I guess, but not nearly as much. And I love seeing Green Lantern just like not be able to decide what to create with his magic ring because he's like too creative.
I'll create a cannon. I'll create a missile launcher. I'll just pick something. Yeah. Well, then I just like the little like, because like obviously the show has been already building up kind of this like little romantic tension between Batman and Wonder Woman, and then to see it from like a kid's perspective of like a kid having a crush, it was kind of fun. Like Wonder Woman's like, I'll go with Bruce actually, and then Superman's like, what's going on? And then and then Green Lantern's like, for a man who has like a million different kinds of vision, you're so blind. Which was hilarious.
That's pretty good. I did also love seeing Wonder Woman go all big sis on all the children.
Yeah,
She's like, I'm gonna tell all your moms on you. And they all just immediately quiet down.
Yeah. But also, like, they decided to do make Etrigan, the demon Etrigan, a baby. Like, what? Like, it's so weird because he's supposed to be this, like, creepy, like, demon character that's a very, serious character. And just, like, oh, he's just a baby version of him now. Okay.
Yeah, he's just a little ball of snot and fire.
Like, as ridiculous as the episode is, it in a way it makes sense because it's like it's all being done. The villain in this episode is a child, right? I mean, he's like technically he's not like a child. He's just kept at the maturity and age of a child for 1,000 years or whatever. But he's still at that age and maturity level of a child. So like, it's kind of like one of those things of like, oh, that demon that's been tracking us down for years, that's been my enemy for all these years. I'm just going to turn him into a baby. Haha. Now you're a baby. Haha. Like, yeah. Okay. I guess a kid might do that,
Yeah.
if with a kid gaining all this magic powers. So I think that's fine. It was just kind of funny and just kind of weird.
I mean, the way that they did it all makes sense, and it's like congruent and everything. It's just
weird.
Yeah, it is like really a novelty, as you said.
Yeah, it's an episode that exists just to be like, what would it be like if the Justice League were kids? I don't know. Like, here, that's what it exists for, and that's what it is. So that's why I feel like I don't have a lot to say about it.
Aren't there I know that there's like Young Justice, but then I bet there's even more shows that explore that idea, don't they? Like fully?
I don't know, and maybe not like this young, because like I think like Young Justice, most of them are like teenagers, right. Especially like Teen Titans and stuff too. Like, so I don't know. Because like I know this is a thing that cartoon shows have done before. Like there's a show about like kid versions of like the Looney Tunes and stuff. There's like it's a thing the shows have done before, that like cartoon shows have done before. So I'm not sure actually, but yeah. We can, but yeah, no, it's one of those things of like, at least it's like the show doesn't always have to take itself super seriously. It can have some more serious episodes, but it can also just have really weird, fun episodes.
Yeah.
I like when a show can do that. Like Avatar, for instance. There's some episodes of Avatar that barely has any jokes. They're really serious and like good for that. But then there's also like the Nightmares and Daydreams episode, which is just freaking ridiculous, where Aang is having visions of Appa and Momo having a sword duel, and
just pure
you
fever
just go
dream.
all out there. Or like the Ember Island players, where they're just watching a dumb play about themselves, it's not afraid to like have an episode that's just ridiculous and not meant to be taken as seriously, or meant to just have fun with, kind of. Yeah. But anyways, I guess we should move on. We're already at almost half an hour, so I don't want to drag this out too long. Next is Hawk and Dove, which, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about Hawk and Dove other than like the characters it introduces. Hawk and Dove. They seem like fun characters. The main plot is kind of nothing to me. It's like one of those plots where you're just like whatever. I don't know how you feel about it, but
I mean, first of all, that's the first time I've heard of either of them, so
yeah. I think they're fun characters. It's a fun kind of dynamic. I think they're brothers, I believe, right? Yeah. So they have this kind of fun dynamic of like, one is the like aggressive one who's like ready to fight at any given moment. One is the pacifist, like, let's talk this out kind of character. But like the way they play off of each other, I think with those personalities, I think is done pretty well.
They
it's entertaining
did seem to
enough.
have like a good combo going, even with just conversation.
And Wonder Woman goes through a little character arc of like she's become a little too aggressive, and she's learns to like not be so aggressive, I guess. Because obviously the villain is Ares, who is fueled by anger and aggression. Like that's his thing. He's fueled by war. War
made a suit of armor that
is also fueled by anger and fighting and war.
That just won't do anything if you just don't fight it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean that's what Ares is, right? Ares is the god. In the Greek mythology is the god of war. So he's like, it's like if there's no conflict, he doesn't have power is kind of his thing. So he tries to create conflict within humanity so it can feed his power kind of. But I mean, as far as that plot goes, it was fine. It wasn't like anything special. It was like a pretty basic plot, I think. It's like, but Hawk and Dove are cool. I like them. So yeah, I don't have much more to say about it unless you do.
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, moving on. Okay. Here's another funny episode. This little piggy.
Oh, right.
So Wonder Woman gets turned into a pig, and Batman sings at the end.
That you covered everything.
I mean, Batman sings is enough to be like, what?
Even in the show, they were just like, oh, I need something of equal value, something that is like an absolute secret that you would never do otherwise, or blah blah blah, and you just hear him start singing, and they're like crying in the background. It's like, yep, this is worth it. A deal is a deal. You've paid the price in full.
He's not bad at singing either.
Mm-mm.
But of course, he's Batman. He's good at everything. But yeah, I think I heard somewhere that Kevin Conroy, the voice actor, actually did have a history of being like on stage, like probably in like musicals or something, maybe. So that's where he has his singing skills from, maybe. It was something like that. I don't know if it was exactly musicals. I don't remember. I heard something like that. I could be wrong. But yeah, no, it's just great. And then like Wonder Woman at the end just starts humming the song he was singing, and he's like, what? Which I love that. Yeah, it's I mean, it's a story about Wonder Woman getting turned into a pig. What more can you say? Like,
right. I mean, they momentarily introduced a bunch of characters like Wannabeast and whoever else was in that little search party.
Yeah. So I was watching a YouTube video about like the reviews, like reviewing the season, because there's this one channel that like it reviews all of the DCAU stuff, and I've been kind of following along as we've been watching them along. So I was watching the one on this season where he reviewed this whole season, and he said apparently they didn't end up doing this because they couldn't use the Joker in the episode for some reason. I don't know. There was some weird thing, but they were gonna have a scene where Batman is like walking down an alley, and or Joker's walking down an alley, and he's finally has, because Joker's big thing is he really wants to make Batman. He really wants Batman to go crazy. He really wants to make Batman like go insane finally, right? Push Batman over the edge to insanity. And he's like talking about how he finally has the perfect plan to turn him, make him super insane and everything. And then he just sees Batman walking down the alley holding a pig, like talking to it. And he's like, oh, never mind. Somebody else already beat me to it. Never mind. And then he like apparently, I don't know if this is true. It was like a comment on this YouTube video. I was reading the comments. I think that said this, and I was like, I hope that that's like true, that was something they were gonna do, that they wanted to do, because that's hilarious.
Yeah.
If it's true that they were going to do it, it's sad that they didn't go through with it, because it would have been hilarious. But yeah, this is another one of those episodes like the kids stuff episode where it's just funny. It's just nothing really, like, there's nothing to really take seriously in this episode. It's just, I mean, I guess you could say there's a development of Batman and Wonder Woman's relationship, I guess. Because there's like the beginning part where they're talking about their relationship and Batman's like talking about why they can't be together or whatever. And so there's like stuff like that. But
I'm just looking back on it and I'm remembering that there's like this big introduction of this villain that they go to fight, and there's the moment that she transforms Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it is just about getting Wonder Woman out of pig form.
Yeah. And literally all he ended up having to do is sing. She's like, I want to see you sing, and then I'll change her back. So she's not even like a big, horrible, maniacal villain. She's just kind of like, she had some sort of like petty thing against Wonder Woman. It was like, I'll turn you into a pig. All right, you know what? I'll turn her back if you sing. Like, I would really love to see you sing. Like, that's it.
And the only things that she did while like she was on the loose was sing on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. She's not like this horrible, terrible, maniacal, evil villain. Like, it's funny. It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have much more to say about it other than Batman sings. Like it wouldn't be so funny if it was like Bruce Wayne singing. But the fact that he's standing there in the Batman costume, the Dark Knight, the Caped Crusader,
Bane of everyone, criminal,
just singing on stage. Like, I don't remember what what the lyrics of the song were, but it was like something like some nice, slow, like sweet song.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hilarious. The spotlight's on him and everything. Like, it was great. All right. Anyways, moving on. Unless you have much more to say about it.
Nope.
Okay, so now on to a more serious episode. Fearful Symmetry. So this is the one where they find out about the Supergirl clone.
Right.
I think. Yeah, it is. Okay. I just have to look at it to make sure. So this is actually a really important episode for the overarching story of this show. So far, I don't think it really has done much up to this episode. There's something going on with these sort of government experiments and stuff that you're not completely sure about yet, that they're investigating.
And even at the very end, there's a moment of like, oh, they're still doing something in that facility.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's been hints of this in Justice League, in the episode with the Joker and the Royal Flush Gang, because he's like, oh, they were kids who were being experimented on by the government, and it's just kind of glossed over in that episode. But then you really think about it, you're like, wait a minute, like, what's the government like? So this is kind of tied into this a little bit, I think, where it's like the government is, I think there was something in the Superman show where there was like somebody who was like with superpowers who was experimented on by the government or trying to be used as a government weapon or something like that. But there's like some sort of conspiracy going on, and we have none other than the best conspiracy theorist in the DC universe, the Question, in this episode to add to that story, which perfect character for that story, because I mean he's the conspiracy theorist, but he's the conspiracy theorist whose conspiracies are actually kind of correct. He's not. Everybody thinks he's crazy, but he's not really. I just love the line of like he mentions what she ate or something for dinner or something like that, and she's like, "What? You go through my trash?"
Please. I go
Please.
through everyone's
I
crap.
go through everyone's trash.
Just so good.
Yeah, no, I love the question. This was a character I remembered very much from this show, and I always loved him when I saw the show before. He was just always a really fun character because, yeah,
he's so serious, but everything he says is just so like over the top and conspiracy theorist-ish.
Right.
It's just funny.
Yeah, exactly. It is. But yeah, and so they talk in this episode about how in order to clone Supergirl, they had gotten her DNA and stuff from the time when she was like in the hospital at Star Labs or whatever, which actually is something that happened in the Superman show, I think.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's why it's like, not a thing we would know about much, but yeah, no, I think it's a really good episode. I think the dynamic of the characters was really nice. Like, I think Supergirl and Green Arrow have a good dynamic. I think Green Arrow playing off of and then playing off of Question was a really good dynamic as well. Cause like Green Arrow is just constantly like, like you're just insane. Like, do you really think these stuff is connected? Clearly there's nothing going on here. And he's like, no, they're like, I think that the show is doing a good job at sort of like giving good character dynamics that are fun to watch in episodes like this. So
and
really
now
like
they have much more characters to work with, so a lot more combinations and possibilities.
Yeah, so it's like you'll have episodes where you'll have a character you've never really seen before, but they'll really shine in episodes. Like this is the first episode with Question. And you already get a really good sense of his character, and so it's very fun. I like it.
I also love, I forget what the specific line was, but Green Arrow was like, is everything a conspiracy in your world? And he's just like, in your world too, you just don't know. You just don't know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, no, I really like it. It's also, it is also a really important episode for the overarching story. I mean, I've seen this entire show at least once, I think. Some episodes I've seen more than that, but yeah, and you learn a lot more about the whole conspiracy thing as you move on. It's just this season has a few little hints towards it to make it interesting. But we can move on to the next episode if you'd like.
Sure.
Next is The Greatest Story Never Told, which is the one with Booster Gold.
Right. Okay. Where he's on crowd control as a calamity is happening that we don't get to see really at all.
Yeah, and then we just see what happens with him. He realistically saves the world because there's this black hole that will take over the whole probably world, I guess. But nobody knows that he saved the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole little story arc for him in there of him. I'm only in it for the fame, and then at the very end, he's like, he tells the truth, like, yeah, I'm not a good person, blah blah blah, but he ends up saving the world anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the one thing I will say about this episode, like, it's fun. I think he's a good character, and he's funny when he's like working off the other characters. Like when him and the plastic guy, not Plastic Man, because Plastic Man is a different character, stretchy character. Stretch? No, it's what's because it's oh my gosh, right? I know his name. I just can't think of it. But because remember, he's like they don't. It's like, oh, they have Plastic Man. They don't need two stretchy guys. He's like it's like, I'm also a detective, so I'm like him, and I'm like he's like, so I'm like that guy and Batman rolled into one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, no, he's a fun character. But I think the episode does start to get a little boring once you get to the kind of middle section, the main plot, because it's like you just start to get a little annoyed. You're like, okay, is it really this hard for him to just put this thing on this guy's neck? You know?
Right.
Like, he's literally like walking up right behind him, and then something just happens to like hit him or something, and you're like, okay, like as long as you don't walk in front of him, you're fine.
Mm-hmm. Also, you can fly.
Yeah. And, like, just do it. And then he like just decides, he's like, oh no, I'm not a good hero, I can't do it. I'm like, just do it. It's not that hard. Literally walk right up behind him, clamp it on, just like
call out to him, tell him to face the other way for a moment and to stop walking.
Like, it's like, I like the idea of this episode. I just feel like they could have come up with a more interesting like heroic thing for him to like do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like the whole weird like black hole coming out of the guy's chest was just kind of weird, and it didn't make for the most exciting stuff to happen. But other than that, it's a good episode. I think that's the only real complaint I have of the episode.
Mm-hmm. Like, the results and like his character progression and everything was great. It's just the conflict was like, oh yeah, this should be easy for him, except for random reason number 1, 2, and 3. It's not.
Yeah. Now, I do think this idea is hilarious. The idea of there's this massive like battle going on between this horrible wizard, and it's like clearly seems like one of the biggest battles the Justice League has ever had to face, and it's just, we don't see it. It's not important. Like, we see like Superman crash out. It's like, Superman, are you okay? Then it's like it's half Superman, half Batman, the voice of Wonder Woman, and you're like,
yep.
Stay on crowd control, leaves, and that's it. And you're like, oh, what's going on there? How did that happen? No, doesn't matter. I think it's just hilarious.
I love when things do that so much.
It's like, no, we're focusing on Booster Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say about it though. It's funny. I still don't understand how everyone seems to think he's Green Lantern, even though he's not even green.
Right.
Like, are all these people colorblind? I don't
think there's green gold colorblind. I'm gonna be honest.
Probably not. Yeah, I don't think so.
Green colorblind.
I'm like, he even says that. He's like, now the one time he's like, if I was Green Lantern, my costume would be green now, wouldn't it? Like, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, he's got a point.
But yeah, I don't have much more to say about it than that. So, moving on to The Return. Who is returning in this episode? None other than the android,
right?
Who's pretty much practically a god now.
Yeah, even stronger than when he left.
He can literally straight up teleport a planet to another location and then teleport it back just on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's like, oh yeah, I just put it in a pocket dimension. Can you put it back? Zoom. Done.
Like, it makes sense with like what the character is. The whole point of him is that he can endlessly learn new things and evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense, but it's like, damn, like, good thing that he wasn't actually trying to destroy Earth, because there's literally nothing they could have done to stop him. All he wanted was to talk to Lex to try to find out his purpose. Like, that's literally all he wanted to do.
That thing's an interesting character, just in all ways. Because, like, when it was first introduced, there's a whole thing of like, oh, how could you possibly defeat it? The moment that it sees you, it copies you, and it has all your strengths and blah, blah, blah. And it's constantly evolving and changing and gaining new abilities.
Yeah.
And then you look at the mental side of it, and you're just like, Oh, it has no idea what it's doing. Like, it has no idea what it's supposed to do, what it was made to do. It's just going.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't like that.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, and like the conversation he has with Lex was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of the first episodes I watched of this show too, because I think at one point we had like a DVD that had like a couple of the episodes on it, and this was one of them. So I watched. I've seen this episode a lot. It's actually funny. I'm pretty sure I've seen this episode before I watched the episode that he originated in Justice League.
You did mention that, didn't you? That you didn't really know what was going on because of that?
So I was like, who is this guy? Like, I didn't understand. And then whenever I did finally watch season 2 of Justice League, I was like, and I got to that episode, I was like, wait, that's the, I was like, wait, but that's that guy from that one episode. And I was like, oh, he makes so much more sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why he's specifically going at Lex for this. Yeah. It is interesting though that that the Justice League puts so much effort into protecting Lex Luthor after all the things Lex Luthor has done to the Justice League, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of shows like a certain level of like integrity, I guess, on the Justice League's part of like, they're not going to hold a grudge. They're going to, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to protect humanity, all of humanity, no matter what, kind of, is like their thing.
Yeah, it definitely does. Just the idea that, you're a bad guy. You're still a person, though, and we still have a duty to protect you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and as of late, he hasn't really been doing anything evil. He's just, like, getting into politics, I guess, but that's, as far as we know, that's where he's at right now. He hasn't done anything evil in a while at this point, so, and he's supposedly reformed, so we'll see. I mean, I know he's in the show more, so we'll see what the character they do. I mean, I know a little bit about what happens with the character, but I'm not going to say anything. I think Lex as a character has had an interesting progression across the show. Because I think in like Justice League or in the Superman show, I think he mostly stood as this sort of like unbeatable character because he was always doing this shady, villain stuff, but nobody really knew because he kept it secret. He was able to keep it hidden. And then Justice League opened with, he's finally like exposed as a villain now. So now he's a fugitive on the run, in prison all the time. And then that's kind of how he stayed for a lot of Justice League, but then eventually he was given a full pardon. And now, and he's like, I'm going to get into politics. And that's where we're at now.
Every time you say that he's gotten into politics, I just think of the episode of what happened when he got into politics.
In the alternate universe, what happened when he got into politics? Yeah. I think the show definitely does that on purpose, where it's like, it puts that in the back of your head, which, again, those are still, up to this point, probably the best episodes of Justice League. And Justice League Unlimited. But, like, they do such a good job at, like, putting that into your head, like, so you're like, moving forward, every time you see Lex, you're like, what's he gonna do? Like, what's gonna happen with Lex? Like,
just to make you uncomfortable the entire time.
And then you get to this episode and you're like, okay, they're protecting Lex, maybe they shouldn't do that, but they're like, okay, let's see how this goes. They don't do anything with it in this episode. They're like, okay, it's still there, it's still in the back of your head, like, what's gonna happen?
It's still hanging over us.
So Lex definitely becomes a much more prominent character in like season 2 and 3, for sure, from what I remember. I don't remember extreme details, but I do remember some things. So we'll definitely see more of Lex. But I think The Return is a really good episode. I think it's a really good episode. It's one of the first times we really get to see like all of the Justice League, like all of the superheroes fighting at once, kind of like there's that big space battle part where like it just does a montage of showing everyone shooting at him, like all these characters, a bunch of characters that we don't even know who the hell they are because they haven't been properly introduced. But we're like, oh yeah, that's a cool superhero. That's a superhero. That's another one. And then there's like the sky, he goes through the 3 layers of defense. There's the space defense, the sky, and the ground. You know, none of it's, you know, a problem for him, but still, it's like cool. You get to see kind of like everybody, you know. Yeah. So yeah. I think I'm about ready to move on. As long as you are.
Just the last thing to mention. This episode is the one that I realized I hadn't seen Flash at all yet until like he got to the ground.
And I don't even think he has a line of dialogue in it.
He might have 1 or 2, but really not at all.
Yeah, he has like practically 0 role in this season. He does have important stuff like later on in the show. But yeah, in this season, he's like basically might as well not even be there. Yeah. Which is interesting because like I think all the other original members get more to do. I mean, Martian Manhunter pretty much just stays up in the watchtower directing where everybody's going. He doesn't really do much more than that in this season. But at least you see him and hear him talk more, you know. Green Lantern's in it a decent amount. Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, decently prominent in this season.
Hawkgirl has her moments. Hawkgirl. At the beginning, she doesn't.
Yeah. Well, this episode actually is the one where we first see her again, because it's at the end. The android goes to stay with Dr. Fate, and that's where you're like, oh, that's where Hawkgirl is. Yeah, so that's interesting. But yeah, we can move on if you'd like.
Sure.
Next is Ultimatum. This is... Oh, yes. This is the one with the Ultimen, which is another hint towards the government conspiracy stuff. This is probably the biggest hint towards it. The most information we've gotten from that, you know. We know that there's something going on called Project Cadmus. We know kind of a pretty big extent to just how messed up they are with it too. Like they created these people, gave them false memories, made them think they were like normal, real people, had full lives, and then are ready to just dispose of them whenever they want to and replace them with new ones. Pretty messed up stuff.
We don't even know if they're the first batch.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. But this is the first time you also, at the end of the episode, the first time you meet Amanda Waller.
The government lady?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's like actually one of the ones like further at the top of this whole conspiracy thing.
The one that took them away at the end, besides the one guy who stayed with the Justice League.
But it's kind of like this thing where there's nothing we can do about it. Technically speaking, they are government property. We can't legally do anything about it. It's kind of like the Justice League just kind of has to like let it happen. But they did stand up for the one guy. But it's also kind of left on this kind of negative note of like, yeah, he's probably going to die real soon. So whatever. Like it just ends with that, and you're like, oh, that's horrible. Like he seems like a pretty good, nice dude. Like that sucks. Like it's, no, it's a really good episode, very dark episode, just because of that whole thing. I think it's just,
and the way that they react, and like they don't, like, understandably they can't think straight knowing that they're going to die soon now, and so instead of going for help or contacting the Justice League, they're just like, I want to live forever in people's memories, let's kill the Justice League, that'll do it.
Yeah, they're just desperate for any sort of like
It's not rational thought. It is just panic.
Yeah, which is somewhat understandable in that situation of like, because imagine just finding out that like, oh yeah, your entire life of memories is just fake and you're just a science experiment. Like, yeah, it hits pretty hard. But yeah, again, it really shows more of that sort of like, yeah, there's some shady stuff going on. We're gonna really that they're gonna have to deal with. So I really like it.
I did also like the idea that like nobody has a full grasp on their powers in that group. So like the one guy froze basically every enemy in the vicinity, and he's just like, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
And even the scientists monitoring them were just like, should he be able to do that? Oh, he's like decaying at a faster rate right now. That's why he's able to do that. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's like you see kind of a progression of these things, right? Like where it's like almost like they try different experiments and they get closer and closer to like the proper experiment as they want, you know. Like in the Superman show, I think the experiment that there was a hint towards one of these government experiments with Volcana, I think. Remember, she was like one of the random characters we saw in season 2, I think, who was like in one of the random villains that they had to capture in that episode, the one episode.
Oh right, yeah. The lava lady who was with the guy with the flamethrower, right?
Yeah. So based on like the reviews, I said I was watching that guy review. Apparently that she was like one of the earlier ones of these government test things. That's one of the phases of that. There's the Royal Flush Gang is another phase of that. It's like they keep trying it in different phases to test different things out to see which ones are working best. Like they're trying to create their own superheroes that they can control, kind of, because they're like maybe scared of the Justice League going rogue or something. So there's that, and then there's, you know, the Supergirl clone, and then now it's these guys. So it's like their latest experiment is, oh, what if we had it set so we could have them die really early on when we want, and then just replace them with the same exact copies of themselves, you know? Like they kind of have this. That's kind of like their
reset button, so they never will fight against you.
Because they, you know, they've learned from their mistakes of like with the Royal Flush Gang thing. Oh, they were able to escape, and now they're working. Now they're with the Joker. You know, now they're out doing who knows what, and we can't control them anymore. Okay, so the next time we do these experiments, we're going to find a way to control them, and if they do, you know, escape, like we can just have them die soon anyways, like whenever we want, you know.
Yep, just whatever makes them better tools.
Yes, exactly. It's pretty messed up, but I'm actually really excited because I don't remember a lot of details on what ends up happening. Like I remember some things, so I'm really excited to see what ends up happening with all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I'm ready to move on to the next episode. If you are,
I am.
We still have like 4 episodes left to talk about in this season. So next up is Dark Heart. So this is the one where there's like that alien thing that basically just takes up and eats up any matter it can find to create more.
Right, and they get
Adam to
Adam, Dr. Adam instead of Captain Adam.
Right. Yeah.
Or the Adam? Whatever.
The Adam. I think he's just the Adam, yeah.
He is a doctor, though. I do know that.
Yes. I don't have a lot to say about the episode. I feel like the entire episode is just one big, like, we got to take this thing out, and that's the episode. Like, there's not much more to the story than that. There's a lot of cool action moments. The way Adam. It's basically the DC Universe's version of Ant-Man. Yeah. The Atom taking it out was cool. How he did it. There were some cool scenes like Batman falling. Hello, I could use some air support right now because I can't fly at all. Now would be good.
Yep.
It's like now would be good as he's about to hit the ground. Superman just zooms. That's funny. But yeah, I don't have much to say about it other than that.
It's always so funny when they blatantly display a weakness of Batman that is so obvious of him being like a normal person. But you always forget about it because he's Batman. He's not supposed to have these.
Although I always thought it was weird because Batman usually is able to if he's falling, use his cape to glide.
Yeah, that's usually a main thing that he does, isn't it?
So I was thinking that when I was watching it, I was like, can't you glide down at least? I don't know, maybe he doesn't have the right stuff with him to do it for some reason. I don't know. I was like, it's weird. I was like, I don't know, that just seemed weird to me. But still, it was a funny moment. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about it. I think just because it's not a complex story or anything, it's they're taking this thing out. It was another good excuse to kind of show just a bunch of heroes together fighting, which is always cool.
Yeah, just the not shock value, but make the spectacle of this army of supers.
Yeah, right, because the whole kind of point of this show is there's a ton of superheroes, so it is nice to occasionally have those moments where you just see a ton of them at once doing something. Because I remember when I was a kid and I first heard of this show, because I already knew, I had already seen season 1 of Justice League 50,000 times, as I've mentioned on this podcast.
Yep.
And I remember some friend of mine or some friend of ours or something was telling us oh, did you ever see Justice League Unlimited? It's like Justice League, but there's endless superheroes. Any superhero you could think of is in there. And me not understanding the difference between Marvel and DC was is Spider-Man in there? It's no. See, it's not any superhero you could think of. But no, still, I remember my little kid brain was whoa. There's just endless superheroes.
They're all
That's awesome. I gotta see this. So it's mind blown just at the thought of it,
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that is, it's nice to see that every once in a while where it's just tons of superheroes. Even tons of superheroes you have you have no fucking clue who they are. You're oh, that's a superhero. I don't know who he is. That's some knight looking guy on a unicorn. Okay. Whatever.
They could honestly put anything.
Or Pegasus. Was it a Pegasus?
We would have just been okay.
Yeah. I think some of those characters you do get to know more about them later on, but still, it's when you first watch it, unless you're have a super deep knowledge of DC universe, DC comics, you're gonna be who's that? Who the hell is that? Who's that? What? But yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about the episode.
Neither do I. I guess it is kind of a nice way to display those characters, though, that nobody knows. To just be yep, they're in this big fight. You don't know who they are, but now you know that they exist.
You could see them in the background. You could see a little bit of what they're able to, what their capabilities are and stuff. So it's yeah. Next up, we have... Ooh, this is a good one. Wake the Dead. This is a really good episode. This is the Grundy one.
Yep.
So,
Poor
this is a really good episode. The way the episode starts, I think, is pretty dumb. It's just some kids got some magic book and were able to create a spell that raised Grundy from the dead. And I'm like, okay, that's the way you're like, that was a really weak beginning way to open it up. But beyond that, the rest of the episode is good. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Because I really like that they did a good job at really continuing the relationships that were built in the last time we saw Grundy when he died, you know, like between him and Hawkgirl. Like they didn't just kind of go like they built on that. They were like, yeah, that happened. They had that. They built a bond. Like they became friends. And so they kind of build on that. Now, obviously, Grundy doesn't remember. He's basically a mindless monster now, which is actually kind of sad to see, especially, you know, if you like imagine watching that episode and then watching this episode not too long after, it's yeah. It's sad. But yeah, and then it's the return of Hawkgirl.
It's the perfect reason for the return of Hawkgirl too.
Yeah, it's like because it's two things. One, she's the only one who can fight him because of her mace that's good at fighting magic things, and like Grundy is like stronger than he's ever been before. Like Superman can't even handle him. And two, because she had that friendship with Grundy, so it's a great way to like reintroduce the character. But also, of course, they got to involve Jon Stewart's new girlfriend to throw in some drama. So, but yeah, no, great.
Who is she's one of the superheroes. Who is she? Do you actually know?
Yeah, she's Vixen. I don't know a lot about Vixen, but it's besides like her powers and stuff. She has like some ancient, right? Yeah, she has some ancient like artifact from somewhere in Africa or something like that allows her to call on the abilities of any animal, basically. Like you could see like she would do a thing and there'd be a little vision of an animal and then she would have the ability, like you could see like the outline of like a cheetah and then she'd be running fast, or like an elephant and then she's like running with a bunch of power and strength, you know. I don't know if you noticed like that there was like the animal kind of things that were popping up. But yeah, basically it's like she'll be like, she could use it to be like, all right, I'm going to have the abilities of an elephant now. I'm super strong, you know. I'm going to have the abilities of a cheetah now. I'm fast, you know. Whatever it is. So that's pretty much the power.
I was just so confused because like, okay, I know she's part of the League. Who is she? I don't know this person.
Yeah, she's not like a super popular character, I don't think. So it's, you know, or well-known character in general. So yeah, I mean, I knew who she was. Although I think this show actually might be where I first heard of her. So that might be why actually I knew who she was. But yeah, that's Vixen. But yeah, so there's that. I really liked that ending moment where Hawkgirl is like facing the crowds and like so many of them are like booing at her and be like, you traitor and everything. And she's like fully like, I will talk about that as well. I deserve all this or whatever. And then, but then there's like this one family who's like, you saved us. Like it's kind of like, despite the mistakes she's made and despite, you know, what, you know, obviously what happened, she's still at heart, she's still a hero. She is still, you know, she did still save all those people that she did in the past. All those heroic things she did in the past, she still did. Like that's still a part of who she is, you know, despite it's like you can't be defined by all the bad things you've done when you've done so many good things too, kind of. I thought it was an interesting little thing. And then like, because she says like, I deserve this, and then they say like, oh, thank you for saving us, like we're forever grateful for that or whatever. And then he goes, Green Lantern, I think, said it. He's like, or it might have been Green Lantern, but he's like, you deserve that too. But yeah, another interesting thing about this part too is like, you actually find out what the vote was for Hawkgirl than the final episode of Justice League, of like whether or not they voted to keep her or not, and they voted yes.
With Superman being the tiebreaker.
With Superman being the tiebreaker, I think Green Lantern said that he abstained from the vote, so it ended up being, so it was only 5 people voting. Because, and I think you could actually probably pinpoint who voted what way based on the final conversation that you saw them having in that episode, and based on their just general attitudes.
True.
I believe Flash voted yes.
Makes sense.
I believe Wonder Woman voted no. I mean, because even in this, in these next few episodes, like Wonder Woman still has a negative kind of like
right
grudge against her. And I believe Batman voted no, because Batman just kind of doesn't trust people. Like, you know, he's Batman. He's going to be like, oh, you messed up. Like, I don't trust you anymore. And then who's the other one? Wait, who am I missing?
Jean.
Oh, yeah, I think he voted yes, I believe.
That would all make sense, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a pretty, and then obviously we know Superman voted yes because he literally says that I broke the tie, but that's my theory. And then John Stewart didn't vote; he abstained because he was too personally attached to the situation. But yeah, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hawkgirl is officially like back. Like in the Justice League.
You were talking about that final moment, and I thought you were talking about something else, which was
yes. So the big moment of this episode, moment? That they literally say that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's literally said in the episode. So yes, I would call it an old yeller moment because literally say that in the episode. It was really sad. She has to go down and kill Grundy. You know, last time she saw him, they had really become good friends, and she was like sad to bury him and everything.
Yeah. And
now she has to kill him. Like, yeah, it's pretty sad because like I think like even Green Lantern said like, do you want me to give me the mace and I'll do it for you so you don't have to like go through that? And she's like, no, I'll do it. And like she goes down and she starts talking to him. She's like, it's okay. I was just like, wow. Like I'm like, I was already nearly in tears last time Grundy died.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to make it happen again, which is crazy for a character like Solomon Grundy. Like throughout the show, he's just like this big, dumb, Hulk-like villain character. And then they made you care about him when he died, put you almost to tears when he died, and now they're putting you to tears when he dies again. Like, come on. It's like this show can get some pretty intense moments.
They picked like the least likely character for it too.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't even remember that when we watched it. I completely forgot that it was ever even a thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So when it happened in that season, I was like, oh, I completely forgot about this episode as well. So I was like,
that it happens
hit by it again.
Time.
Yeah. Like I've seen this before, but I'd probably only seen this episode like once before this, and like a long time ago. So I completely didn't remember it. But yeah, it's some pretty heavy stuff. It's pretty sad stuff.
It is no right to be either. It's just like, yep, we're gonna throw this on you right now. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You've already done this to us once. Leave us alone.
You're doing it again. Yeah. It's hard to watch, hard to swallow, but good. Very good
Yeah, it's
episode.
good.
I still think the opening of the episode is dumb. Like, they could have found a better way to make it happen. More like a way that makes more sense. Like, some random kids just buying a book on the internet can bring Grundy back from the dead. Like, come on. Like, you think you'd need some more extreme, intense magic that you can't just pull out of a book as a high school student. Like, but, beyond that, it's a really good episode.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, are you ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right, so next up is the finale, which is two-part episode, which is time travel stuff.
Right.
I mean, they're good episodes. I'm just not a huge fan of time travel usually, so some guy invents a time machine I think the guy is from the Batman Beyond era. And he invents a time machine.
That would make sense, because he goes, the place that he ends up like trying to live is Batman Beyond era, and his wife is already there, so.
Yeah. So he invents a time machine. He wants to get away from his wife. He doesn't want to he just kind of steals artifacts here and there throughout history. Nothing too big because he doesn't want to make any huge changes in history. Doesn't want to affect it too much. But he gets pushed by his wife too much, and then he's like, I'm going to steal something from the Justice League. But they catch him and chase after him, and that throws everything out of whack. So there's the two episodes. The first one is all about them going back into the Old West times, and the second part is about them going into Batman Beyond times. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I have to say. I feel like the first episode I don't have a lot to say about. It had some fun Western stuff. Beyond that, that's what it was. It was like, because the three characters we have are Green Lantern, Batman, and Wonder Woman. I love the little detail that they're like dressing to be, cowboys and stuff, and he tries to give Bruce a gun, and he's like, you sure you don't want it? He's like, positive. Like, yeah, Bruce Wayne will not use a gun under any circumstances. He's like very adamant about that.
Be a lot easier for him if he did.
I mean, yeah, he'd probably be good at it, honestly, too. If he but
there's probably like a comic book Wild West Batman, isn't there?
Maybe. I don't know. There are versions of Batman that have used guns. Not very common. There was one small time period back in like I want to say like 50s or something, where he like had a gun and like would shoot people. But it's throughout most of the history of Batman, he does not use guns, does not kill, yada yada, all that good stuff. There was like one weird alternate universe thing where Bruce was killed in the alleyway, not his parents, and his dad became Batman and was like a depressed, drunk, alcoholic Batman who killed people with guns. Oh,
okay.
But that's a separate thing. And it's like Bruce's mom went insane and went to like Arkham or something, and it's like a whole.
I also seem to remember a version of Batman where it is just Alfred filling in for him and like thinking that he's two different people, like completely insane, just thinking that he is both Alfred like during the daytime and Bruce Wayne. Yeah,
I don't think I've ever heard of that, surprisingly.
I don't think I'm making that up, or in this it's just a dream that I had. I swear that's interesting.
We'll have to look into that and then confirm next week. We'll try to remember to do that. We'll look into that because I don't want to extend this podcast too long.
Right.
And then confirm if that's true next week. That's your homework for next week. Beyond just watching the movie we're doing next week, is figuring out if that's a real thing.
I think it is. Where else would I get that?
I don't know. I don't know. It might be. But yeah. So this one, we got some Western fun stuff. I don't have much more to say about the first of the part 2-parter, unless you do.
There was the character that I saw him and I'm just like, is this like Old West Two-Face? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, I think he's like a DC character from somewhere. I just don't know. So I think he is, but I'm just not sure. But part 2 is a little bit more interesting because Bruce Wayne meets Bruce Wayne.
Right. And then they do good cop, bad cop on an interrogation.
They're like, I never thought I'd see Batman play good cop. Like, everything is relative. Yeah. Because it's like, as he gets older, he just becomes more and more aggressive, which is actually interesting. Considering, so I've been recently I just started watching Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in those early episodes of that show, he is not as aggressive sounding, like in his voice, as he is in Justice League. So maybe that's like a real thing they went with this, is that as time goes on, he just becomes more grim and aggressive and dark.
Has less patience and just wants to get things done faster.
So when he's old Bruce Wayne, he's more aggressive than even the young Bruce Wayne who's in his prime. Old, decrepit Bruce Wayne is like, who can't really fight anymore.
I just love the moment where Batman's holding the dude over the edge of a building, and old Bruce Wayne just comes up and is just like, can't believe I was ever so naive. Let me handle this, and just takes up his cane.
Can't believe I was ever this soft. Like, what? Yeah.
Just like, nah, don't threaten him. Beat the shit out of him.
Yeah. But I think one of the most interesting things about this episode is the whole thing of Green Lantern meeting his son, who is also clearly the son of Hawkgirl.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because when the episode ends, there's no sign of this ever happening besides the fact that Green Lantern and Batman remember, and that's it. Meaning Green Lantern is going to have to go on dating Vixen, knowing in his head, thinking in his head, in the future I end up with Hawkgirl again. Wait, what? Like, it's just gonna frick up his brain.
Uh-huh.
Like imagine living with that. You know what I mean? Like dating somebody else, but like living with that like thought in your head. Like,
yeah, that's gonna be messed up.
Like, it'd be one thing if everyone forgot what happened, like even Batman and him, and like whatever, because it's like, now that he's thinking about it, that might affect his decisions in the future that he makes,
mm-hmm.
or like might affect him differently than if he didn't know. You know, so it's like, it's pretty interesting. So, yeah,
okay. When you said about Green Lantern, I thought you were going to talk about this little tidbit that honestly doesn't really matter, but the moments where he transforms into the other Green Lantern.
Oh, into Hal Jordan? Yeah.
Yep. It was just like, what's going on? Who are you? Hal Jordan. Don't worry, I'm up to speed. Keep going.
Yeah. So I don't know if this universe has ever had Hal Jordan, because there is episodes, or maybe just one episode, I don't really know, of Superman that has a different Earth Green Lantern, but it's not Hal Jordan, it's Kyle Rayner.
Okay.
So I don't know if this show has ever had Hal Jordan, despite the fact that Hal Jordan is like probably the most well-known Green Lantern of Earth, and the most like he was the main kind of one in the comics, which is interesting. So,
but it just had no reason to happen, and it just like he just turned into the other guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, the
what?
whole point is like the timelines are messed up, so things are just happening weird. Like Wonder Woman disappears. Suddenly, there's things from random other timelines just appearing out of nowhere. Like, oh, there's a dinosaur now. Okay, like, whatever, you know, like
the the dinosaurs. It's being brought in from a different time. The timelines are shifting, so like, Wonder Woman either was never born or never left her Amazonian island. Okay. But then there's Green Lantern changes into a completely different dude. What?
Well, yeah, maybe it's like because of the timeline shift, it changed timelines, so the Green Lantern that was part of the Justice League wasn't John Stewart anymore. It was Hal Jordan. And he's along with for the right. Like,
and it's so seamless too. It just like pops in. Who are you? Hal Jordan. I'm up to speed. Keep going.
Yeah. And then he switches back later and it's like, oh, back to normal. Okay.
Dude,
moving on.
Make up your mind.
Well, it's funny because it's like they didn't have to throw that in there, but I liked it. I thought it was funny because it's like
I loved it.
They're acknowledging the fact that like, yeah, Hal Jordan is like the main Green Lantern of Earth, yet this universe has never had him. Like he's never been acknowledged up until then, you know. Just like, okay. Because like if you look at like classic older shows like the Super Friends and stuff, like Hal Jordan was the Green Lantern that was on the team, you know. And a lot of versions, like a lot of the animated movies, like the newer animated movies, like the ones we were watching with the Death of Superman and stuff, like that's Hal Jordan, you know.
Yep.
He's kind of usually he is the main Green Lantern of Earth that they have, but this universe decided to not use him and use like Kyle Rayner and Jon Stewart instead. So yeah, really interesting, really fun stuff. But yeah, I don't know what to say. Like the interesting thing is like this is a season finale, yet it doesn't have a lot of big like status quo changing event or anything.
I mean, it literally has.
Besides, the only thing that's going to change moving forward is the whole thing of like Green Lantern knowing that his son is also Hawkgirl's son. That him and Hawkgirl have a kid together at some point, and that messing up his brain. But beyond that, it's just kind of like,
yeah, the only things that changed from like the original moment in that cafeteria to the ending moment in that cafeteria is the minds of Batman and Green Lantern.
yes,
because everything else was completely reverted.
Yeah, exactly. So very interesting. Very interesting. All right. I don't know if I have much more to say about it. I think the podcast has gone on a decent amount of time, so it's probably a good time to close, unless you have more to say. Yeah, I like the season. I think it's a good kind of starting point because it's like, again, after the big things that happen at the end of Justice League, it's nice to kind of have a season that's kind of like a nice, easier to get into season with like smaller scale stories, but still some hints of what's going to come with some of the government conspiracy stuff and some darker, more serious episodes like the Grundy episode and stuff, but still. So yeah, overall I really liked it. But yeah, anyways, that's about all for this week's episode of WABAN. You can listen to next week on Saturday, noon Eastern Standard Time. That is when every single episode of this podcast is uploaded. Next week, we are going to be talking about a movie, and we are finally breaking free of talking about DC. We've been talking about all DC movies and shows for a while now. And next week, we are going to be talking about something that has nothing to do with DC, just a completely random movie. We're going to go back to doing just like random movies, probably, instead of all DC, like we used to. And next week, we are talking about a movie from the 90s called The Usual Suspects. So I've never seen it, neither has Cub, so that'll be really fun to watch.
Even really heard of it.
I've heard of it, and it's that's why I put it on our list of movies.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So that'll be next week, and the week after that, we will continue our discussion on the Justice League Unlimited with season 2. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll finish it with season 3. So there's many different places you can listen to this podcast, including our YouTube channel, which is called WABAN. There's a link in the description to that. It has all of the podcasts, but it also has some gaming videos we did with Portal and Portal 2. Eventually in the future, we will do more gaming videos, but yeah. You can also listen to the podcast on many different audio platforms, including Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also check out my YouTube channel, which is called Nim TV. That's NIMTV. There's a link in the description to that as well. My most recent few videos have been DC related, so if you're listening to this because you like DC, then you can maybe check out some of my few latest videos. So yeah, anyways, thank you all for listening to this episode of WABAN. I've been Nim.
And I'm Cub.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.